Whereas I didn't ask for anything at all my first go around. I didn't really have anyone to ask either. So it was this very much like bootstrap mentality that I'm trying to make sure I'm not doing this time when I've got some people around me.
Are you overwhelmed by motherhood and barely keeping your head above water? Are you confused and frustrated by how all the other moms make it look so easy? You can't figure out how to manage the chaos in your mind, your home, or your family. I get you, mama. Parenting with ADHD is hard. Here is your permission slip to let go of the Pinterest-worthy visions of organization and structure fit for everyone else. Let's do life like our brains do life. Creatively, lovingly, and with all our might. When we embrace who we are and how our brains work, we can figure out how to live our lives successfully and, in turn, lead our families well. At the end of the day, we just want to be good moms. But, spoiler alert, you are already a great mom. ADHD does not mean you're doomed to be a hot mess, mama. You can rewrite your story from shame spiral to success story. And I'll be right here beside you to cheer you on. Welcome to Motherhood in ADHD. Hey there, Successful Mama. It's your friend, Patricia Sung. Today is an episode that you all have been asking for a while, and it's about being pregnant and having ADHD. I invited my Instagram friend, Camden Phillips of Humanity Hive here today because she is currently pregnant. And, there's a lot that I've forgotten over the last 5 years. And I wanted to have this conversation with you over, what does it look like to be a mom with ADHD? There's actually quite a few folks in this community who are considering being a mom, but not a mom yet. And taking in all the information about, does this make sense for you? What can you do going in? I have all these worries, research gathering phase of does this make sense for my life? And what I absolutely adored about this conversation with Camden is that not only is she an open book in what she's dealing with, but we ran through the gamut from before you get pregnant to how it is being pregnant and the postpartum and that full, journey from before to after. And what are some of the struggles that we run into in being moms and growing a baby? It is a gift, and it's also hard work. Ken and I got to commiserate a bit on the things that were hard, but I also want you to know that if this is something you're thinking about and you're not sure if it's right for you, it is also a beautiful thing to become a mother. So while, the struggles are always another one, because as soon as you think you got, kids figured out, they grow and change and they're in a new phase, and then you got a whole new set of challenges to figure out. It is a really beautiful gift to be able to watch someone grow and help them become the person that you hope them to be. And not to say that I expect my kids to show up a certain way, but to know that they can be happy and that I can teach them all the things that I've learned so that hopefully they need less therapy than me. But that I wouldn't trade it. As hard as it is, as difficult as it is, I wouldn't trade it. So let's dive into our conversation with Camden. Camden Phillips is a licensed therapist with over 10 years experience in the field, as well as being an ADHD coach. She has all the background of the clinical experiences, but also as a mom herself with ADHD. I absolutely adore her honesty in the way that she shares vulnerably on social media and is a beacon of light for our community in sharing the tough stuff. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's welcome Camden to the show. How are you doing this morning?
I am good. How are you?
Hanging in. It's it's kind of like an day today. It's very rainy.
Yeah.
Which always, I don't know. Right. Okay. Random question. Do you feel like the weather affects you more as somebody with ADHD?
Oh, massively. Yeah. I think I did a post not too long ago about how we need to eat and have sunshine, and the amount of people that were like, oh my gosh, I am solar powered. The dopamine, serotonin combo that I get from sun is unreal. Yeah, my mood is massively affected if I can just sit outside for a minute. I'm like, oh, I don't hate everything. I feel good.
Yes. No, it's like something I'm like, I'm just a plant. I just need some food and water and sun and I'll be okay. Actually, I would say, you can't see me on the podcast, but I bought a little plant for my desk and it's looking very sad right now.
Oh, it looks like my indoor plants. I can't do an indoor to save my life.
I'm usually fairly decent with plants, but this little guy's the only one here at my desk and he just gets neglected. So sorry. Sorry, guy. It's even a succulent. I was like, it's very little watering involved, but
That's what everyone tells me, that I could do a succulent. I'm like, you have no idea. Outside ones I've got. Inside, they're going to drown or starve or something.
Yeah, it's not my greatest talent. But anyways, would you just share a little bit about this? Like, how did you come to find out that you had ADHD? The like Reader's Digest version, obviously, of now this is clearly your specialty. This is how you help people every day. But like, how did you end up here?
Yeah, absolutely. Technically, I guess I got diagnosed somewhere in college. My memory wants to say it was probably going into my sophomore year. I did not have a thorough, extensive diagnostic meeting. My brother has it. My mother has it, had it. And I sat down and basically talked a little bit about some of my struggles. And she was like, yeah, it runs in the family here. Try this med. And that was kind of how it went. I think I even remember the first medicine being a non-stimulant. I was like, this isn't really doing much for me. And I kind of dropped it and almost kind of forgot that I had it, if that makes any sense.
Yes,
like that's how non-eventful that whole, like, you have ADHD thing was. I did not even think about it. Obviously went through school, became a therapist, and kind of remembered like, oh, I've got kind of ADHD, but going through the program, you're just taught the basics of the DSM diagnostics. Like it's bare minimum. And I can cringe a little bit. I used to work with kids almost primarily in the beginning, and I would tell parents, they're going to outgrow it. It's going to be fine. They won't need medicine forever. Like, that's what we were taught. That's what we were told. Yes. And I was like, I don't even take medicine anymore. I tried it that one time. Had no idea really what it meant. And then many years into my career, kind of did a deep dive. I think I was struggling with a kid that I was working with. Behaviorally, we just couldn't figure out what was going on. And I did a deep dive ADHD, just like searching through stuff, and found some ADHD articles, I think on Attitude Mag, which I loved that it was, medically verified and all that stuff. I was like, holy crap, this is a beast of a diagnosis. Like half of our caseload has this, and we're looking at it from the wrong approach. So I learned how to help them better, started educating, my fellow clinicians, teachers, paid a lot more attention to my own treatment, tried medicine again, and just kind of ended up here. It's the thing that stuck. And I realized most of us counselors we're working with ADHD all the time. And we have no idea really what that means. And that's why we usually feel stuck, because we know this much about it. So it's morphed into creating a Humanity Hive page just for like passion project. And now here I am doing coaching, which is wild, and a podcast. So, just a snowball of really cool stuff.
When you said like, we only know this much, which if you can't see us, we're like holding up the little, like, inch wide fingers. I felt the same way when I was teaching. I'm a former middle school teacher. And like, when you look at your classroom, it's like 80% of your problems come from 20% of your kids. And usually it's the ones with ADHD that are, or some sort of, form of neurodiversity that are making things spunky. And I feel the same way. It's like, I'm like, I wish that we had, and we are getting there. We are moving that direction, of really equipping the people who are working with the people who are struggling. When you understand the full scope of it and are really leaning in, it's like, oh, we can make so much more headway. But otherwise, it just feels like that kid who's driving you bonkers in the back of 7th period.
Right. And we're tossing them the same tips and tricks that we toss every other kid, and it's just bouncing off of them. I learned a lot. I'm able to share a lot, which is really great, because I've got, clinicians that I work with that are going, oh, that's like gold. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I'm so like, but there's still so much we don't know.
Yeah. I guess sticking with you for a second, what would you say are your greatest strengths that you would relate back to your ADHD?
Oh, incredibly empathetic. I'm told time and time again that there's a skill set in helping people feel seen and heard. And I have the ability to pretty much understand whatever point you're coming from. Whether I agree with it or not, I can put myself in that position and go like, I see where you came from. I'm a great problem solver for other people. Not always myself. I need someone else to kind of pull me out of my head. But there's definitely an ability for people to be stuck on something, and I can kind of do this zoom out thing and go, well, here are the pieces that are connected. And if we did this, ta-da. which I think serves me well I do like clinical supervision for other therapists, which is really fun for me because they come to me, having to process client issues, and I'm just like solving little puzzle pieces and tossing out suggestions. And it's great fun. And strength or weakness, I can live in the moment depending on what the moment is. I can fully kind of be present in the fun if that's where it is. And, which means I have to be careful about where I let my present be. But when I'm mindful of it, it's really fun.
And how do you see your ADHD most affecting your motherhood?
I think emotion regulation. I can get overstimulated really easily, and be snappier or edgier, and even just my communication when I'm not even intending to. It's just this level of edginess that can be there that I really have to pay attention to. I think the more I dive into recognizing kind of the patterns of when I'm most overstimulated and when I'm good, and kind of tapping into that's been really helpful. But definitely that.
And what's one thing that you're really proud of accomplishing, considering that you have ADHD?
Honestly, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, we touched all the little pieces of ADHD. RSD held me back a lot from wanting to even put a page on Instagram, wanting to show my face on Instagram, and then eventually speaking, and now doing this because my brain wants to tell me, you're going to mess up. You're going to say the wrong things. They're going to find out you're a fraud. You're going to do the ADHD thing where you're going to say the wrong thing and they're going to like nail you to the wall for it. You're going to be canceled. Like it just, goes on and on and on. And my own therapist is like, Candace, that's not going to happen. I'm like, no, but my brain says it is.
It does. And it sounds real.
It sounds real. So I really can't believe I'm doing anything on a public platform at all.
What do you think made the difference where you were willing to step out and try?
I think feedback. Every time I put a little nugget out there, oh my gosh, that's really helpful. Please keep doing it. Please keep doing it. Those kind of messages, when I get those from followers, I don't know that they even realize just like how much that means, because I can get in that spot where I'm like, I'm done. Like, algorithms and social media. I'm tired of figuring out what I'm supposed to do and not do. But every time that happens, I always get a nugget of like, I just want you to know this thing you did was really helpful. Or when you share this, that like changed the world. Or now I've got a diagnosis because you gave me the ability to go feel confident to talk. And I'm like, okay, like it reminds me of why I'm doing it. And it makes me a little braver every time to go, okay, I'll do a live video. I'll do a podcast. I'll speak instead of just use text, like not be scared of my own voice.
For a long time, I still do it now, but for a long time, every single like kind message that I got, every nice email, it didn't matter what it was, I would screenshot it. I had like a whole pile of them on the days where I was like, this is terrible. I'd go back and be like, okay, these 5 people said it's a good idea. Okay, I gotta keep going, And those tiny little like breadcrumbs of encouragement really do mean a lot.
They do. Yeah. And I tell fellow ADHDers that all the time, and especially like therapists or coaches, when you get feedback, like put that in a folder because you're going to need to read that one day. You're not going to forget that someone told you that you did something great, but you might forget how that feels, like the good feeling of it. So relive it. Yeah.
Especially on the days when you get the like trolley comments or the, the people with their pitchforks, and to go back and be like, no, this is why I do what I do.
Right.
Not for
this.
Those people.
Yeah. And that's hard because, if you're going to do a little bit of a controversial post or you're going to say something people are going to jump all over, and I kind of have to gear up, and even more my husband, just so you know, I'm putting out a post. So I'm going to probably be checking comments a lot because I don't want negativity bringing down other people. But it keeps me in an anxious state. So those wear me down.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. I don't think I have ever put into words those times where I push my own comfort zone a little bit farther, is that it is like, well, now I got to check all the comments and make sure nobody's being ridiculous, and I might have to delete something. And how do I respond to this? Wait, should I respond? Should I just delete them? And there's that whole like spiral that goes through, and it does take over a large part of your brain capacity for that day.
Yeah.
And yet also
wanting to stay present in like the reality of everything else.
Right. And you want to stay true to who you are, and you don't want to shy away from those things, but also knowing they take a large
chunk out of
capacity
you.
out of you.
Right. And it's almost like I hate it if something goes a little viral and it's one of those, because then you're trickling that stuff in for a couple of weeks and it's like, I can't, this thing is still giving me, negative comments or whatever comment. Like my energy has to kind of always anxiously be there until it kind of fizzles.
It's like social media is free to receive, but like when you're putting stuff out there, it's not just the time that you made the video. It's also
as long as that thing has life.
Yes, it still exists. So like, woo. Okay. So the reason I asked you to be on today is part of me is like, I could just keep diving into your story because I love talking to women who have ADHD and especially in how you end up where you are. But you are currently pregnant and you are getting a ton of questions, as do a lot of people, obviously, with the title motherhood and ADHD, people come and ask questions like, where do I even start? How do I even know that this is a good decision? Like there's so much fear that comes into being a mom. When you're planning for it, you have all the pre-fear. And when you're not planning for it, you get dumped with the current fear, like extra dumping level. Like either way, you come into this with a lot of concern and trepidation. And while I often tell moms, like that tells me that you really want to be a great mom.
Right. Anytime
that you're worrying, it's because you want to do this well. You want to do right by your family, your kids. It doesn't change the fact that it's really hard. Right. And there's so many fears that can come with that. Like you think it's just going to be the easy ones. And then once you dive in, you're like, oh, what about this problem? And especially with our brains that can go down that like intrusive thought or shame spiral that really you can drag us down very quickly. There's so much to consider and it's all unknown. So when moms come to you and ask you, like even moms to be of like, I'm thinking about this, like, what should I do? the great card, like, tell me the answer.
Tell me the answer. I don't know. I don't know. I just figured this out a little bit today.
What can you do to treat your ADHD? Medicines are a great way to help so many people, but they don't work for everyone, and sometimes you're in a place or a season that they're just not going to work out right now. Maybe they're not an option. I have put together a list of a ton of ideas, most of which I either have done or I'm currently doing myself to take care of my ADHD. This is like the full brainstorm list of what you can do to take care of yourself beyond medication. Head on over to patriciasung.com/beyond-meds and grab yourself that checklist. That's patriciasung.com/BEYOND-MEDS for a free checklist of all the ways that you can take care of yourself beyond medication.
What do you tell moms who come to you or moms to be and say like, I don't know what to do. Like, should I even be a mom? What's your advice?
You're justified in your fears. And I think pay attention to what's motivating those fears, why you're thinking about becoming a mom. I know for 8 years of our marriage, we weren't going to have kids at all. We were like, we're childless forever. This isn't going to happen. And that was true for us for a long time. So I'm always kind of like, wherever you're sitting, like respect where you're sitting, your choice of why you have whatever feeling. But I try to instill that like having ADHD doesn't mean that you are hopeless as a human and your ability to give love and support and care for someone. We all experience it differently. And I think that's something that we can struggle as a group with ADHD. We tend to think that we're all this cut mold and we all have the exact same issues or struggles when it's vastly different in how it presents.
Yeah.
And so remembering that like you've done a lot of hard stuff in life already, like you're here, which means you've got the skill set to adapt and to learn and to get over things that are difficult. Like that's all there. This is that. And it's big for sure. But you're probably a bit more equipped than you think you are to do the hard stuff. But yeah, it's, unless I really got into a conversation with someone and it was like, all right, we're doing like kind of a therapy back and forth. We're going to dive into this for weeks. It's just trying to give hope and encouraging them to be able to talk that through with someone. Like, what are those fears? Where are they coming from? Is it about ADHD? Is it about your own upbringing? Is it about, what is it really?
Yeah. So if I'm going to reverse back a second.
Yeah.
To the women who don't feel like they should be moms. I'll preface it with, I don't think everybody's meant to be a parent. Like
Right.
that is not some people's bag, and that's okay.
Right.
But there is so much societal pressure to do that.
Oh yeah.
What would be like your best nugget there for women who are struggling with like, can I just not do that? Is that okay?
Yeah. 100%.
Yes.
Yes, you can. And that's a hard thing to know that you are going to have to honestly answer. I mean, you can't go through the grocery store shopping line without someone asking you if you've got kids, when you're going to have them, if you have one, when you're going to have the next one. Like, there are these clubs after high school, and it's get engaged, get married, 2.5 kids, pets, a fenced in yard, whatever. And you don't have to join every club. That's okay. And the tough skin part of it is probably knowing how you're going to answer those questions, because you're going to get them all the time, and you can get angry and bitter about it, or just kind of find your way of answering it and moving on, and knowing that you've got value and worth and love to give, even without being a mom.
Having the right response that fits you is wholly necessary, because like you said, when you don't have kids, people are asking when you're going to have them. As soon as you have one, you're like barely popped out one, and they're like, when you having another one? You're like, just hold your horses. And still bleeding.
Yes.
A minute.
Just a second. You've done this, right? Why are you asking me this?
Like, you've clearly forgotten. Although I always say that there's a reason that we don't remember all the struggle that comes with pregnancy and childbirth and, the newborn stage, because then no one would ever have another child. Never do it again. Because it is really hard. But knowing that, there's always going to be another nosy person asking you questions. So having that, canned response, that this is just how you want to respond, because there's always going to be somebody who's
that's just going to ask, and push for a very personal question that for some reason the world doesn't think is.
And yes, it is none of their business.
And
yet it doesn't seem to stop them.
No.
And it's easy to get overwhelmed by that. It's easy to be frustrated by very unaware people. But we also can't control them. So knowing how we can deal with it ourselves is the answer to a lot of struggles.
A lot of struggles, for sure. And I think being okay if that changes for you.
Yeah.
Like, I remember we would openly talk about how we were choosing not to have kids, and we were very conscientious of checking in with each other. Like, where are you on this? Every few months we would check in. We did this for years. And I was terrified the day that I left my therapy session in tears, realizing I wanted to have a baby. And I've been this person who's not having kids, there's a little pride there. And then just what that would do in our relationship and things like that. What if we're in different spots, which we were for a little bit. So I think also just being okay that you might change one way or the other, and you may not, but either one's okay.
Yeah. You don't have to be the same person for the rest of your life. You're allowed to change your mind.
We're kind of wired to grow and to adapt. And as we get older, this is our first time doing life too. So
I like that. It's my first time doing life.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert yet.
No, I read that somewhere. I don't even know where I saw it. It was like the first time I heard that my parents were doing life for the first time too. Like, I all of a sudden had a little bit more grace for them. And I was like, man, that's so true. Like, looking back at my own parents, or hopefully my kids looking up at me going like, this is my first time doing all of this as well. Like, I've never done life before. Doing my best here.
Okay. So when we look at being pregnant with ADHD, I asked for some audience questions, and Catherine asked, and let me preface in this whole talk, like, neither Cannon or I are medical doctors. So this is advice coming from your friend, not coming from a doctor. So please consult your doctor on all advice you hear today, and make sure it's fit for you. And also that whatever works for the two of us is what works for the two of us. And you are your own person. And I have full faith in your autonomy to figure out, does this make sense for you? Because we're sharing our stories. That doesn't mean that every mom listening should think the same thing that we do. So I always like to preface the controversial subjects with you don't have to do what I do. This is my opinion.
This is not black and white law here.
Yes. When we look at pregnancy and ADHD, one of the first questions I usually hear, and I'll ask you too, when in a sec here what are some of the frequent questions that you get, especially now that you are sharing that you're pregnant. I'm sure you're getting popcorned with them. But Catherine asks, do the hormone changes that you're going through affect your ADHD? Is it going to make it worse? Is it going to make it better? What have you seen, not only within you, but in your clients as well? What do you see happening?
I think how it affects us varies human to human. I remember reading a lot about how getting pregnant, that for many women, the boost in estrogen almost kind of quote unquote erased the ADHD. Like it almost wasn't there during pregnancy. And I was like, wow,
so much better.
Awesome.
That was not me, but anyway.
Yeah. And so I was literally thinking about this week. I was going, okay, so if I was to look at myself and I'm about halfway through, would I say that's been true? No, but not like across the board. Like, I've got my little, what do they say? You can't see on the video, my little meager 200 milligrams of caffeine that they say it's, quote unquote, healthy to have during pregnancy. And I am able to do tasks right now a little bit easier than I thought. But I've also, I think just this week, gotten a little bit of second trimester energy, whereas literally, if you've seen any of my posts, I'm like literally falling asleep on the camera on the couch as I'm trying to make some kind of video. And so, I think me as an ADHDer, I always have a lot more of the fatigue side. Whether that's like mental fatigue or it's because I got the additional like hypermobility, POTS kind of stuff, PCOS stuff. I mean, throw a dart at why I'm tired. Those fluctuations hit me really hard. So like any kind of additional drop in energy definitely for me brought out more of the emotion dysregulation, more of my like patience was shorter. I'm exhausted. RSD was higher because I'm looking around at a house that's messy and I'm normally able to keep it up. Thankfully, my husband is telling me, yeah, Kingdom, but you're still working. And our 3-year-old comes home to you at 2:30. Like you're still doing a lot of stuff, but your brain wants to be like, no, you're not functioning at 100 whatever percent anymore. It's all going to depend on the pregnant ADHD person that you talk to, because we're chemically made up different. Our environments are different. Our structures that are naturally in place or not naturally in place are different. Either on your first kid or your second kid or your third kid, whatever. Because I think what we do know about ADHD is supports are massively important. Cheerleaders, helpers, whatever they are. And so days that I have that, I feel better. I would say like, yeah, I'm doing pretty good with this whole pregnancy and ADHD thing. Whereas I could look back where I had very little to none of that in my first pregnancy. Those days are really hard. So with every question, it's going to be, it all depends on the person.
I think that's important to hear that for some people, they feel really great. And for other people, it's really hard. And you don't know what you're going to get until you get in there. And even if you have some parts that are easier, you may have other parts that are more difficult. Like I can think back to like my fatigue was also like really hard. I threw up 7 months with my first and all 9 months. I threw up until the day my son was born with the second. And so it was just like hard. and I can see like my emotional regulation was definitely more stressed, but I feel like when I did hit that, like I did not get a huge uptake in the second trimester with all the throwing up, but like I do feel like I wasn't as spacey on things. So it's like
the brain fog was better.
Yeah, like at the beginning it was rough, but then it was like I really felt like, okay, these are the things we're going to get done. All the nesting kicked in, and we're getting things done, and that part felt more doable. Yeah, and yet also
still really hard, and I'm exhausted.
Yes.
You're right. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, the brain fog, that spaciness, that's been really hard. And I feel like this week, I'm just kind of starting to get to where my brain can absorb things, and that's been frustrating because I've been working on kind of building a business, and it involves this website thing that for the love of God, I just cannot conceptualize how to build because, and I keep just saying like, gosh, if I could just take my ADHD medicine, like I know I'd be able to get that done. And we're like on months and months of me just not having the brain power. So that would be definitely a hit. I guess that's a good reminder.
Yeah. And, you're growing eyeballs, and livers and lungs. And a lot of times I had to like remind myself of like, this amount of energy is going to growing a person.
Right.
And it's okay that I can't do these things over here because that energy that would be like making
Mhm.
dinner is now going to eyeballs and
Mhm.
like,
Yes. And that's where it is.
and I don't get a choice. There's not like, oh, I'm just not going to make some eyeballs today and I'm going to cook dinner. It doesn't work like that. So that was a really hard. I'm like, I don't even know that really. If I think back to like pregnant Patricia, I don't know that she really believed it. Now it's easy to look back and be like, that
Right. You
we
had
needed
grace
more
looking
grace.
back.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it was last week. I asked my husband what he wanted me to order from, Uber Eats or something. And I was like, your shirt's got ironed today. Today it was either we ironed things or I cooked a meal. Today I chose that you had clothes. And he was like, that's fine. It just laughed. I was like, everything
Yep.
is a like this or that. Which one is of more importance?
Yeah. Yeah. I had a conversation with my husband when in my second pregnancy. So my oldest was probably like 2 at the time. And I told him, I'm like, I'm still like the throwing up has not ended. I don't foresee it ending. Like I can't do all the things. And we literally had the conversation of like what matters. I'm like,
Mhm.
I got taking care of a toddler, keeping up with the house, and making food. I can't
Mhm.
do all 3 of these. And I can't
Mm-mm.
let my kid somebody's got to take care of him. So it's like, do you want me to cook food or do you want me to clean, like keep the
Mhm.
house up? And like, I mean, and not even like, we had a cleaning person, so I wasn't like scrubbing toilets, but just like the mere putting things away was so
Oh, the
hard.
stuff. Yes.
Yeah. And so he said, I would rather have the house organized than home cooked
cooked meal.
food. And so like he definitely picked up more of the cooking and which obviously is a sacrifice on his part, working all day. And
Right.
at the time he was still traveling a lot for work. But like I told him like we're gonna have to just eat out a lot. Like I just can't. I cannot.
Mhm.
And I think having those conversations with yourself and your partner of like
Mhm.
where do our priorities lie? Because it is, especially when you're in like a family unit, getting their 2 cents
Right.
is helpful. Like, do you want to cook the food or do you want to buy the food? Because it's not going to be me. But like,
Right.
when you're all on the same page, it's a lot easier than if I had just decided cooking food was more important. And then I come to find out like really he can
He's
deal
stressed out
with,
because the house is messy.
right. That really
Right.
bothers him. So like in that case, it was like, I can make the sacrifice to figure out
Right.
like one of these things can happen, but not both.
Mhm.
And I'd rather pick the one that everybody's going to be feeling better about.
Agreed.
Because also like pregnant me did not want to cook any food anyways. Like everything smelled. Yeah.
Yeah.
So having those conversations is a really valuable piece, whether you're doing with a partner or on your own, is to know like where do your values lie? Because you can't do
Mhm.
everything and grow eyeballs
Nope.
and take care of other
Cannot.
kids. Like
Not going to happen.
so what, like obviously we just ran through some like good mom advice there, but like how else are you managing your symptoms given that you mentioned that you're not taking your medicine right now? Like what are you
Mhm.
doing to take care of yourself so that you can do your best given that you don't have all the same tools in your toolbox that you normally have?
Yeah. I've definitely paid more attention to how I'm filling my schedule. Whereas before, my son's at school from hour to hour and I'm filling it up with as much work stuff as I could, even though that probably wasn't as healthy either. So I've definitely taken off some availability on my calendar a little bit, being mindful of like, I'm gonna need time in between things to kind of eat, before I try to like skip the meal and do the whole ADHD thing. Like, no, I can't skip. I need to eat.
Yeah.
If it is remotely pleasant outside, I make sure I'm out there for a little bit. I would love to say I'm doing exercising. I'm not. It's more of like I'm planting flowers and being active outside because that feels good for my brain, my soul, my body.
Yeah, I call that mom movement.
Mom movement. Yes.
It's like I don't
Yes.
have time for exercising today, but I have time for mom movement. We can go run
Yes.
around in the yard, plant some
Yes.
flowers. Mhm.
Yes. We're connecting. I'm moving. We're doing all the things. Accepting help. And I'm trying to get better at asking for it. My in-laws moved up here in November, which the timeliness of that was just magical. So not feeling bad when there's a day that I just have to be like, can y'all just a couple of hours take him, and getting better about being the one that asks. In the beginning, I was like, honey, you have to ask because I feel really bad asking your parents for help.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I didn't ask for anything at all my first go around and didn't really have anyone to ask either. So it was this very much like bootstrap mentality that I'm trying to make sure I'm not doing this time when I've got some people around me. Yeah. I've always got a day where I don't do anything. Like I've got one day a week where I schedule nothing. And either that's, I decide to clean that day. I decide to walk around Target for 4 hours. I decide to sleep, whatever I want to do. That's my day. And that's been helpful.
Yeah. That white space is one of my favorite ADHD, like I don't know what you call it. It's not a, I don't know, a trick, a hack. Like I don't sound, but like having
Scheduled
that,
nothing.
yeah, like having that open space, I think is something that's really valuable for people with ADHD, and knowing that you have that space to do whatever you want and feel like that freedom where you can
Mhm.
literally do nothing if you want. You can do some cool, fun new hobby that you're diving into, but knowing
Right.
that you have that open space to let your brain be,
Mhm.
um,
Permission.
yeah, is I'm like, oh, I'm like, don't get on too far of a tangent here, Patricia. Like, I think
Oh, I
that's
know.
one of the things that is actually like vital to our existence as a human
Mhm.
being. And like when you don't create that space in your day to just take a walk or,
Mhm.
wander around Target for a few hours, then like that's why you sit up at night and your brain won't go to sleep, because your brain's like, oh,
Right.
look, we're quiet. Let me tell you all the things right now. It's because you didn't
Yes.
give your brain a chance to talk to you all day.
Right.
You have to have
There's
that
fun
space.
stuff I wanted to do with you, and we haven't gotten to do
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
But 11:38 p.m. sounds
There
like
it
a good
is.
time. So,
Yes.
um,
Always.
like that, I think that's a really vital piece that is not talked about enough in
Mhm.
understanding like
Pregnant
how
or
our brains
not.
work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
it is very hard to find as a mom.
It is. It is. And I needed permission. And I love that my husband pretty much every week goes, "What's your Thursday look like?" I'm like, "Nothing." "Good. So you kept it open." "Yes, I've kept it open." So like he's always reinforcing,
Yeah.
checking me on that, because he knows I will, "Oh, well, okay, I'll do this or I'll do that." And he holds me accountable, which feels good, because it cuts down on that kind of RSD of like, I'm being lazy because I'm not doing anything this day.
Yeah. And it also feels a lot, what's the word I'm looking for? I think it's easier to say no to those other things. Like you don't feel as guilty for saying no to the thing on Thursday when you know you're going to have to report back and say
Uh-huh.
Thursday's empty. It makes you feel like more solid in your
Yeah. Empowered.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Confident.
Yeah. Because a lot of times we think we are being lazy when we have this space that's not
Mm-hmm.
structured or scheduled. I mean, and again, like, a whole tangent. We could
Oh,
go
a
on
whole
this right here.
tangent.
But
Yes.
like allowing yourself that space to do nothing is not, in my opinion, not nothing.
No, not at all.
It's
And that's a hard
necessary.
thing to break, especially if you come from, I mean, you were a teacher, so you went in somewhere and you worked these very typical hours.
Yes.
And I
And
did
it
that
was
same
nonstop.
thing, and it was nonstop. And now what we're doing is very different. And the brain wants to often tell me, if there's space, you're in a moment of downtime, I should be doing something.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And like
yeah.
not even to like, I mean, like there's the whole layer of like having trauma that makes you
Mm,
feel like you need to be
yeah.
doing something. It's like there's so many reasons why you feel like
Yes.
you can't stop and slow down for a minute. And I'm like, I so wanted, I'm like, oh, just dive into the rabbit hole. No, stay on track, Patricia. Like that is
That could be
that was
4
it.
whole episodes of us
Yes, I
doing
know.
those
I'm like,
tangents.
oh. I will just leave it at you are
At
not
that.
being lazy. That open space, that white space is needed for our brains.
Yes.
And I will not get on my soapbox. Okay.
Before we continue on, I want to say thank you to our sponsors whose support allows me to bring you this podcast for free. I have reduced the mental load as a mom by using the Skylight calendar. Over the last few months, it has been in our kitchen with adorable pictures of our family and our family calendar. So this keeps me from being the gatekeeper. I love that it is visual, color-coded. There's a chore chart with emojis for kids who are still learning how to read. The app is super convenient, and you also have the option to connect it to your digital calendar. This has been a game changer for us to all stay on the same page and avoid those unfortunate miscommunications that happen. As a special offer, you get 10% off your purchase when you use the code Patricia at skylightcal.com and get your very own digital calendar frame. That's SKYLIGHTCAL.com and the promo code Patricia to save.
Next question. Obviously, like I said earlier, neither one of us are doctors, but
Mhm.
I mean, a lot of moms will ask me like, should I take my medicine? Should I not take my medicine? Does anybody here how do you give moms confidence in whatever decision they make about their medicine choice?
One, like you said, I always revert them back to their doctor. And I'm thrilled when I hear that they are working with either a psychiatrist or an OBGYN, whatever it is, that's treating the whole human.
Mhm.
And, oftentimes they'll say something like, yeah, we're going to try to give you a little bit of this med because you being a dead mom serves nobody. because
Yeah.
for some people, taking whatever medicine or stopping whatever medicine really is a threat to their livelihood, to their safety, whatever. And for many women, ADHD is that intense. It really does impact their ability to function safely. And so I love when a doctor is able to talk to them and go, we are going to still treat you as the woman and do all the things we can to keep your baby safe. Because then you're not lost as a patient in that part too. So it's always, please talk to your person, please advocate for what your struggles really are. Don't hide. Don't be ashamed of hiding. Like, when I do or don't take my medicine, this is what life is really like. Because, there is no right or wrong. There's not enough tests to know all the things. You really kind of got to figure out and talk to your doctor about it. Yeah, that's kind of where I go.
Yeah. And I think I do want to highlight that, like, the reason we don't know whether or not it's okay to take the medicine is because it hasn't been studied. There's not enough studies. Like, there's a few. And if I'm say I have it on my brain, as I want to go through and grab a couple of those so people can pull those resources. But so if I find them before I post this, they'll be in the show notes. But it really just comes down to they haven't done enough studies to, like, when they say a medicine is safe for something, they're like 1,000 bazillion% sure that this is okay.
Right.
So they can't say that yet because they haven't done enough studies. Because, again, try not to get on soapbox here, Patricia, like, women as a whole have not been studied well in science. Like, usually they pick men because they don't have fluctuating hormones. So they're much more, dare I say, boring study. They're a steady subject to study because there's not going to be the hormone fluctuations that come with being on.
Well, and anything with pregnancy and safety is hard, because who's going to be the mom that's like, hey, I'm willing to risk this. Like, yeah, let's test this out on me. No problem. Which is why I think all the time when we're even looking for supplements, we're asking if we can drink a certain juice. Is this whatever okay? And everyone's like, it's really hard to study pregnancy, because who's going to be the mom that's like, I'll be the guinea pig. I'm like, okay, that's fair. But it does leave us in a state of anxiety, because every other article, every other thing is a little bit this way, a little bit that way of a suggestion or a safety or whatever, which is why I don't think anyone has the blanket answer. It's go talk to your people, be honest about what your struggles are, and your decision's very personal.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think, like, as society as a whole, is a lot of times when it comes to a mom who is pregnant, that the baby gets the focus over the mom. And so it does have to be a full picture, because your baby needs you. They need you to be healthy. So you're not the afterthought, which is what it feels like a lot in the process.
Which is when it's great when the doctor's like, no, if your hormones, or not even hormones, if your stress levels are too high, that also affects the baby. So, like, we're not just going to all of a sudden drop you off of 4 or 5 different serious medicines you've been taking and just be like, best of luck. I always get concerned when that's the approach of like, okay, but you're saying you're concerned about the baby, but you're not really, because my mental state while I'm pregnant directly affects the baby long-term. Like, that has long-term effects, not just, are they going to be born? So anyway, that could do the whole soapbox as well.
Yes. So I'm like, I'll sum it up with, you are important too. You matter too. You are not just the vessel of growth. No, you, like, it so matters how it matters how you're doing as well. So that's the conversation that I want moms to have with their doctor, is like, what do you need in this situation? And it is scary to have that conversation, because you do have to be honest in sharing the struggles of what's actually going on. Like, what does it mean when I don't have that medicine? Right. A lot of times, if you have someone who doesn't take the time to really talk through it with you, they may not realize the struggle that you're under. And it's scary to say, like, wait, hold on. What? Like, this matters. This is not a good place for me to be in. So having that honest conversation is really important. And I also recognize that it's hard to do. So, okay. Megan asks, I can't finish my master's thesis. What do I need to do?
Oh, bless your heart. That sounds like me and the freaking online system that I can't figure out. Oh, I think that's when we go back to just like all the really small things of taking it in very small chunks, figuring out what time of day your brain is remotely more capable of finishing it. Doing some physical activity right before you have to do it, boosting your dopamine levels, listen to music, whatever it is, eat. It's like, let's pack every little tip we can possibly give you into that moment. be realistic about how long you can work on it. If there's someone to body double with, to kind of, for you to even just verbally process as you're going along to kind of keep you going. Oof, that's a hard time to be doing a thesis. I'm so sorry.
And I think any way that you can take an ADHD way of making things easier will be helpful. Of like, if writing is hard, can you just talk it out and then go back and edit it? Like anything that's going to make it easy for you.
Yes. Do you need to leave your house because you're distracted by all the things that you need to do in your house, or the fact that you want to sleep on the couch? Like half the time I get energy going to sit at a coffee shop and work, I get more done. I love the verbally processing. Yeah. I can talk into my computer or my phone and get a lot more out than typing.
Yeah. So cool. But yeah, I'm like, we're both like, feel you on that one. That's hard. Yeah. And I think sometimes it's just knowing like you're not alone. That is a hard thing you're doing.
Yes. On its own, without
pregnancy, without ADHD, that is a hard thing to do. And then you layer in all these other pieces of who you are.
Yes. And maybe advocate for yourself. Talk to your professors.
Yeah.
I don't know what supports they can give you or grace they can give you, but.
Yes. Okay. One more question from, I'm like guessing by this handle. I'm going to say Anna. Why did I feel so good during pregnancy and so awful afterwards?
Well, because we do swim on a cloud of estrogen during pregnancy. And then, like we said, for many women, it feels like a lot of their ADHD symptoms were kind of helped with that. And then the minute, as we know, when we have a kid, all those hormones come crashing down. Even for the non-ADHD women, it all comes crashing down. It's not just because of your ADHD that after you had a baby, you're like, I feel like the bottom of the barrel right now. That's an across the board fluctuation. Joys of being a woman and having a baby.
Yeah. I think in that time of asking for support there too, like it's expected that it's going to be difficult, which I don't think we talk about enough, to be honest. Like, no, I feel like nobody told me what to expect in the, like, everyone was like all worried about like the pregnancy. I read so many books, but like I didn't read any like what happens after.
Right. No, I'm just trying to get the baby out and make sure that happens. Yes.
And then like all the, the fluctuations in your hormones and all the work that your body is doing to recover from that very hard work you did and put all your organs back in the place that they belong and,
and heal a wound. And
like that's a lot. It's a lot on your body. Just that.
Yeah.
And knowing going into like having that grace for yourself that it's going to be really hard. And then also like asking for help from your medical team. Like it drives me bonkers that a lot of times like your 6-week checkup, they're just like, how you feeling down there? Good. All right. You're good to go. And you're like, wait a second. Whoa. I'm sorry.
There's a whole other piece of my body besides the hole that the baby came out of.
Yes,
you do realize that.
Unfortunately, it is going to be on us as moms to voice that of like, what about the rest of me? Like, I need help with this, or, and it's scary. And it, there's a whole, and again, we could spend another whole episode on this one, but
for moms that are pregnant and getting there, like, I think a helpful thing I did in a birthing class with my husband and I was we talked about that. Like she was very intentional. She was a doula that was kind of walking us through it. And we went through these very specific questions and like things for him to check in with me on. So whatever your partner is, what does it look like when I'm not okay? And then when I'm really not okay, what could that look like? And kind of plan for, because sometimes, I hear a lot of fears about postpartum depression, anxiety. What if I don't know? What if I'm not listening? What if I don't have help? What if no one believes me? And so the prep conversations of that was incredibly helpful.
Yeah. And like my husband was the one who was like, this is not okay. Like, this is not
right. How this should be.
This is not how it should be. And I'm always like the word should in quotes, like this, there's red flags here that this is not going well. Like here I am, I have a 2-week-old and I'm like, can I give it back? I don't want to do this anymore. Like, thankfully he was like, okay,
we're going to make an appointment now. We're going to get some help.
Yeah. And I think also just being able to talk about it and know that that's normal. Like I'm very lucky. I had a friend who had gone through postpartum anxiety, which I had never even heard of before she told me about it. I only heard of postpartum depression. I didn't even know that existed. And she was the one who shared about it when I was pregnant. So when my husband was like, hey, I don't think this is right. I could recall back that conversation and being like, oh,
there it is.
Yeah. So I went to her and said, like, can you give me the name of your doctor so that I could talk to somebody? And I ended up not being able to see her doctor, but she referred me to another person who was open, blah, blah. But like, it was the starting point of getting help,
Right.
is knowing that it can be really hard, and it
Yeah.
probably will be really hard, and having that plan in place of like, what should we do if
Oh,
it's not going well?
right. I'm incredibly grateful for that class. And I had one friend who was really honest. She was like, we're going to sit here and talk about intrusive thoughts. And I was like, okay. She's like, we're going to really dive into what these are going to possibly be like. And thankfully she was a therapist too. And I was like, oh, I had no idea it could get that kind of dark. And I'm so glad you told me, because I mean, they came flooding. And it's like, there are certain things now that every time a friend of mine's pregnant, especially for the first time, I'm going, okay, I'm gonna be real honest with you, because I don't want you to freak out.
Yes.
Here we go. This is beautiful, and also scary things can happen. And I don't want you to think you're a terrible mom.
Yeah.
Because they're coming to you. So yeah, another soapbox of.
Yeah, no, and I had all those as well. And you just, at the beginning, you never think like, oh, I'm going to be worried about, what if I killed my baby somehow?
Right.
Like in all the bliss of pregnancy, nobody ever says that. And then here you are at 3 a.m. You're the only human awake that you think. Obviously, there's plenty of people awake, but you think you're the only person awake, and you're sitting there in the dark with your thoughts up with a baby, and you're like, there's something wrong with me. And it's not. It is a red flag. You want to do something about it. You shouldn't have to live like that. You don't have to stay in that dark place. But it's a very common thing. And there's help out there for that. You don't have to stay there and be a miserable person.
Right. And for those your life. Wondering about becoming a mom, that you don't stay there forever.
Yes. It is a temporary phase after, like, when all those hormones are swirling around.
Right. We wouldn't keep doing this if that was a forever stage.
Yes. So it's not like everybody's miserable.
No.
You're not trying not to scare everybody away. But I want moms to know that all these scary things that could happen, that there is support available, that there is help. And you are not going to have every problem that we have discussed today by any means. But knowing what you want to do about those proactively and having that support around you, how can you have that support team going in so that you're not on your own? Helps a lot.
Yeah. And I think, especially for those that are like scared of the idea of becoming a mom or considering getting pregnant, like, one of the best things you can do is start practicing asking for help now, because ADHD women, we tend to be really bad at that. So you're going to have to do that as a mom. Start practicing now. That's like prep work.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. All right. Before I ask you the lightning round questions, how can moms connect with you? What do you like? How can you help people? Where do they find you?
Yeah. So on Instagram, humanity_hive. And I'm currently, like I said, in the process of shifting my website around, and thankfully to Pregnancy Brain, that's taking longer time. But I've got links in there to packages. You can do consultation calls with me to kind of talk about what you're looking for, if this is a good fit. A lot of times what's just on my page isn't all that there is. We'll tweak things and make it work and all that kind of stuff. I often give out my email. People are welcome to DM me, and I'll send out free resources, that kind of stuff all the time. So yeah, Instagram's where I'm living.
All right. Lightning round questions. All you have to do is fill in the blank. You don't have to explain anything. Just fill in the blank. Okay. Number 1, the best thing that I've read or listened to recently is
The House on the Cerulean Sea.
Number 2, my most boring about me fact is
I play Harry Potter in the background, like, endlessly. It's just like my background sounds.
Number 3, when I'm having a rough day, my go-to quote, song, poem, book, podcast activity, whatever is
any kind of 90s rap. I'm there for it. Somewhere around 1996.
All right. Number 4, don't tell anyone
I tell everyone all my crap. Let me think.
You know what cracks me up? Almost every person I interview, I would say probably 75% of them say that. Like, I'm just an open book. I'll say whatever.
It's like, at this point, I'm shaving on the internet. What would I possibly hide now? Don't tell anyone. I don't know that my feet smell worse than my husband's.
Number 5, if I had a magic fairy wand for one spell, I would.
Oh, I can think of 30. Right now, I would fairy away PCOS hair growth. That's what I would do. Or PCOS. Maybe I should just make that bigger. PCOS.
I would say, I'm running the lightning round, but I think that's something that so many women with ADHD deal with. And again, not talked about enough.
No. Yeah. PCOS would be gone.
Number 6, My best piece of advice for mamas with ADHD is
You're doing great, and it's okay to ask for help. Doesn't make you a failure.
I think we could all get that one tattooed on our foreheads.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And
Yeah,
your
it was a
honesty
blast.
and just having a really open conversation about the struggles, but also the hope that comes with motherhood.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
For more resources, classes, and community, head over to my website, motherhoodinadhd.com.